DKR, Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, and KYJC, Coppers. Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, is a CD a good way to go? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. I do have a line open if you'd like to call in. Excuse me. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357. And I'll love to hear what's on your mind. If you would rather not call in, you can always go to the website at prudentmoney.com. At the website, you'll find a question and answer link at the top of the page, and you can click through, and we'll help you out that way as well. There's a lot of ways to get information all at the website, and make sure you sign up for the Prudent Money letter, the Prudent Money e-letter, and get on that mailing list. We'll keep you posted every time we post something on the website. That's all at prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. Well, we are going to get a really big economic number on Friday, so you'll want to watch out for this one because today had a economic employment number come out, and that employment number is kind of is a precursor to the big number that's coming out on Friday, because it's all about employment. And remember what I talked to you about a couple of days ago, that the Bureau of Labor Statistics admitted that they made a huge mistake, a huge miscalculation in those that are actually unemployed. And would have really been a big news story, would have been a big market mover. But yet they won't correct anything because of the appearance of political manipulation. Not making that up. That is actually in the piece that I found on this story. And incidentally, this story was nothing that you could, that was really in mainstream media. Go figure. So if you just look at it from a common sense standpoint, the weakness, and according to the mistake they made, the big weakness that I've felt like has always been there is going to start showing up. So we'll see if that happens on Friday or not, and we'll keep you posted on that and what that means. But I do think that has a lot to say about the real economy, and that and the other story we've been talking about this week is what's happening with the consumer and credit cards, and the fact that people are maxed out paying the maximum interest rate, record highs in interest rates. The question always comes down to how long can that go, and your guess is as good as mine. A lot of the reports that I'm reading is that the consumer is at the breaking point, and we want to keep an eye on that, because it's the little things like that that start to paint the picture of what the environment looks like for taking risk. And that is really important. I've always talked a lot about, I believe it's good stewardship to be a good risk manager, and something that you want to keep an eye on and make sure that you are comfortable with the amount of risk that you're taking. I think it gives it a whole nother meaning when you start thinking about managing what God has given you to manage, God's ownership of what he's given to you to borrow while we're here on this earth. So and risk management's a big deal as far as stewardship goes. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. 1-877-913-5357. Do have a line open. Would love to hear from you. Talked about this yesterday and still getting questions about this. So I thought I would just comment for a little bit on CDs. Obviously, banks are doing as much as they can to keep money in the banks. There's an interesting article that I read the other day from a analyst by the name of Greg Manarino, and I'll go ahead and mention his website, traderschoice.net. He is one of those resources that I stay in touch with because he definitely finds the unreported stories that you're just not getting in the mainstream media. He talks about the practice of unbanking, and that's where people are separating themselves from banking. And he's according to his sources, this is happening at a big rate. And one of the problems that banks have today is, of course, there's a lot of money that's sitting in banks, sitting in savings accounts, making hardly nothing still, even with interest rates going up and other choices available. And they're seeing money come out of banks by the hundreds of thousands of dollars and going into other resources that obviously, the consumer can make more on. So what banks are doing is aggressively marketing CDs, certificates of deposits. And most people aren't listening to resources that talk about what the going rates aren't explaining what CDs are really paying versus what they can get elsewhere. And so you're around 5% or so is about what's being paid in a CD. Now, when you go into a CD, you're tying your money up for at least 1 year, and emergency fund money isn't always the best place to put money in. CDs are not always the great. Let me say it this way: CDs are not always the greatest place to place money that you might need. You want to keep that liquid. The high yield money market savings or money market accounts at your Fidelities, your Vanguards, your Charles Schwabs, those are paying the same thing or just a tad bit better than what you're getting at banks and CDs. And of course, they can go down, but there's nothing that is suggesting that it will go down. And those are liquid. So keep that in mind. I can't really, at least at this point, see where tying your money up in a CD with rates being what they are, let me stress that's the best deal. And maybe more so a high yield money market account. But, like I said yesterday, there is a benefit of interest rates going up, and that is on personal savings, you're getting paid a whole lot more. Now, if you're looking at 3 years and out, the dreaded, and I say the dreaded because there's a lot of mixed opinions and mixed feelings about annuities, but there is, in my opinion, the fixed annuity, which is one type of annuity. There's a lot of different types of annuities, and not all of them are good places to put money. I'll be the first to say that. The fixed annuity, though, 3 years and longer are paying the best rates. And you can get a 3-year, about the best rate that I've seen is 5.25% guaranteed for 3 years versus a 10-year guaranteeing 6% per year for 10 years. Those are pretty good numbers. And one of the things we talked about is that your scam artists and people who are promising big guaranteed returns are at it again. You want to be real careful about that and make sure you're not getting taken. The rule of thumb is that there is the going rate, the best rate that you can get on the market, and anything that is dramatically higher than that going rate is you're either taking a risk that you don't know or it's some kind of a fraud or a scam. So be real careful about that. and make sure that you're getting the real thing. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. As I said earlier in the program, make sure that you signed up for the Prudent Money e-letter. We keep you posted and send it straight to your inbox, and before we post it on the website. So that's all at prudentmoney.com. You know, I was also a couple weeks ago mentioning that we're seeing an incredible spike in the activity of identity theft. And I heard a crazy story. And the reason that I say it's a crazy story because of the amount of information that the scam artists had to have access to pull off this scam. And this story involved gift cards. Anytime anybody suggests that sends you a request for gift cards, that assuming that you know them or anything like that, just make sure, bottom line is don't do it. Because that is a real, that is a way that the people are committing fraud. But the amount of information that this individual, whoever was orchestrating the fraud, had to have known, and the only guess that I could make is that they had broken into an email account or something. But it is absolutely amazing, with technology being what it is, how these scammers are really using that to their advantage. So definitely want to be careful about that, as we see really an uptick in fraud and identity theft that's going on right now. Don't really have a good explanation for it, but it is definitely occurring. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. 1-877-913-5357. Be right back.
The Word for Today is excited to announce the new official online home for the ministry of Pastor Chuck Smith and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org. At PastorChuck.org, you'll have instant access to thousands of hours of verse-by-verse teaching by Pastor Chuck Smith from Genesis through Revelation, and full access to special messages on subjects such as prophecy and much, much more. Also at PastorChuck.org, a full library of great teachings by Kay Smith, and a section where you can read some of Pastor Chuck's books online, all free of charge. So visit the new official online home of the Word for Today and the ministry of Pastor Chuck and Kay Smith, PastorChuck.org.
Hi, I'm Jan Markell, host of Understanding the Times. We're very excited to be a part of Bible School Radio. I hope you will join me Saturday, 10 a.m., for cutting-edge guests and the latest information to help you discern the truth, even the inconvenient truth. We'll help you understand our times and contend for the faith. That's Understanding the Times, Saturday at 10 a.m., right here on Bible School Radio, or anytime at olivetreeviews.org.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. 1-877-913-5357. If you got a question you'd like to call in, I'd love to hear from you today. 1-877-913-5357. You can also send your questions in at the website, prudentmoney.com. Always know that is a resource that's there for you 24 hours a day. So you can send that in, and we'll get you taken care of. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. Get a lot of questions about, is it time to buy bonds? And let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that you want to make sure that you're very careful about. We've talked about that there will be a time that bonds are going to be unbelievably be on sale, and they're going to be a good value. I think especially in mutual funds, they're going to be a good value. I don't think that time is today. The reason being, you would have to come to the conclusion that interest rates were through going up, that the interest rate cycle of rising interest rates was over with. I don't think that by any stretch of the imagination that's the case, and that interest rates have nothing to go but higher. Having said that, remember what we always talk about on the program is that if interest rates are going up, remember that bond prices are going down. So if interest rates are going down, bond prices are going up. It's an inverse relationship. So we're waiting on that point where interest rates are going to be going down and bond prices going up. That's a great time to buy bonds. I don't think we're even remotely close to that period of time. If you have depended upon bonds, bond funds, bond mutual funds, and have used them for years, been happy with them, except for the past couple of years where you probably took some big losses, and you're wondering what to do with them, that's a tough call, because I don't think that you're at a point where you're out of the woods. So I think you have to look at your bond funds, and unfortunately, so many people invest into bond funds thinking safety, thinking conservative investing, and the reality is that as bond funds have shown the last couple of years, and even more so last year, they can lose money, even double-digit losses in a year. So you want to be real careful about that, and make sure that, for one thing, I don't know that I would load up on risky bond funds. Now, there's definitely conservatively based mutual funds that are bond funds, but there's also high yield bond funds. There's also junk mutual funds, and the junk bonds and the high yield bonds are basically represent debt, money lended to companies that can't get financing anyplace else. And so they're forced to pay the higher interest rates. So there's a whole lot more interest rate risk that goes along with high yield and junk bonds and that kind of thing. So you want to be real careful with that and make sure that you're not seeing your losses because of that, because that's kind of a different situation. Maybe waiting out the interest rate cycle, if you can do so, could make sense. One other thing that is important to remember, and this is by no means advice to do so. Once again, the money market, the high yield, and I know I just said high yield's not good. You want to be careful of high yield, and they're calling these money market accounts high yield, which I don't know why they are. I think that it's a little bit of misrepresentation, because I don't really see a big risk level with money market accounts by any stretch. But it's always some place that if you decided to get out of the market, get out of those bond funds, that you could go park some money in the money market account at a Fidelity or a Vanguard or Charles Schwab. Not a recommendation to do so, but those are earning close to 5%, and that can be a place to kind of hide out until maybe the risk level in bonds goes down. Could be wrong, just my opinion, but I think if you look at all the evidence and you add it up, that it comes out to the risk level is still pretty high for bonds. So you might just want to be very careful with that. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show, 1-877-913-5357. What about gold? Should I buy it? You know, what's interesting about gold is that there are, well, according to people who invest into it, there's multiple reasons to buy gold. Let's kind of break them down, talk through the reasons. If you're buying gold, and I don't believe this is a good idea, but if you're buying gold as a replacement for currency, I think that you might want to consider a few things, especially that, you know, having some gold on hand is one thing. Buying gold because you think that it's going to be, that the U.S. dollar is going to be backed by gold, is another. The thing you got to remember about gold is that gold is not something that politicians, once you go to the gold standard, or once you went to a situation where our currency was backed by gold, then politicians lose control of the currency. So that's why I think you'll never see any as gold as any type of in any way currency. Now, having said that, you know, the people talk about cryptocurrency as a way to be a replacement for the dollar. Don't think that that's going to happen either. You got to remember about crypto is that crypto has not even really been regulated yet by the regulators. And I think it will look very differently. I don't think it's going away. I think it's going to be an asset class for years to come, and then there will be a lot of winners and losers. There will be brand new currencies. So there will be currencies that go away. Be a lot of change. That's why you want to be real careful. It's a very risky asset. In no way can you take and have a risky asset and call it a currency. So that's what you want to keep in mind. So what would be a replacement for the dollar? Very simply put, the digital dollar would be the replacement. And from my understanding, the Federal Reserve Board is pretty far along in working on that and how that would be established. You know, bottom line is we're pretty much, for the most part, a cashless society. Just stating fact, not that I by no reason for it. And I think it's a method for the government to keep control and to know exactly what's happening with people and money. So it's a whole lot more trackable when it's a digital dollar. So that's a couple things on gold. Obviously, you can buy physical gold. You can buy gold exchange traded funds, mutual funds that are tied to gold. There's a lot of ways to get a gold influence on your portfolio, and you know, a little bit of gold in your portfolio is not a bad thing. I just think you got to make sure that if you're buying it from the standpoint of a crisis, you name it. There's lots of reasons. I think you want to think through: is that really a good idea, and does it make sense? Because of the reasons we talked about. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know, I do appreciate it. Get a lot of emails through the prudentmoney.com website, and like to hear from you, and questions such as I received this the other day. I am less than a year away from retirement. What steps do I take to get ready? And this is where, if you're looking at retirement, say in 2024, you really got to sit down, take some time to get yourself organized, get everything gathered, and figure out exactly where you stand. And also, extremely important is to make sure that you are ready from the standpoint of risk, because once you get to the point that you're less than a year away from, and let me give you a scenario, that you're less than a year away from retirement, and let's say that you needed $500,000 to retire. That's what all your analysis says. That's your number, and you're sitting right there at $500,000. I can't obviously give advice, but I got to tell you, if it were me, I would not hesitate to greatly reduce risk, because if you're already there, you've already got the money. You certainly don't want to go through a period of risk and loss when you only have 2 or 3 months left to go before you really need it. So it's better to do that and assess at the time of retirement. This is Bob Brooks. You got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.